Have you ever stopped to wonder how the little things you do or don't do every single day might be shaping your life after 65? Maybe it's that extra cup of tea keeping you up at night, the hours spent sunk into your favorite armchair, or the quiet moments when you choose your phone over a friend's voice. If you're over 60, or even if you're just dreaming about those golden years ahead, this video is your wake-up call. We're diving into the shocking habits that could quietly ruin your life as you age. Habits so sneaky you might not even notice them until it's too late. But here's the good part. I'm not just here to point fingers. Stay with me until the end, and I'll share simple, powerful changes you can start today to live longer, feel stronger, and savor every second of your later years. Before we jump in, I'd love for you to hit that like button if you're ready to uncover something new. It helps me keep bringing these life-changing tips to you. If you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss out. Oh, and one quick favor. If you're enjoying this, drop a 1 in the comments below. If something's not clicking, let me know with a 0 so I can tweak it for you next time. All right, let's get rolling. Habit number 1, letting sleep slip through your fingers. Raise your hand if you're over 65 and find yourself staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering why sleep feels like a distant memory. Maybe you're counting sheep, replaying the day's worries, or just tossing and turning until dawn creeps in. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. About 50% of older adults wrestle with sleep issues, from insomnia to waking up too early or feeling like they never truly rest. You might shrug it off and say, "Oh, I'll catch up tomorrow," or "I don't need much sleep anymore." But let me stop you right there. Poor sleep isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a silent saboteur that can steal your health, your memories, and even your years. Think about this. Research shows that skimping on sleep can boost your risk of cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease by a staggering 33%. That's not just a number. It's your ability to remember your grandkids' birthdays, to laugh over old stories with your spouse, or to keep your mind sharp for a good book. Poor sleep messes with your brain's cleanup crew, those nighttime processes that flush out toxins and keep your memory humming. When you miss out, those toxins pile up like dust in an attic, slowly clouding your thoughts. And it's not just your brain. Lack of sleep can spike your blood pressure, weaken your immune system, and even make you crankier than a cat in a rainstorm. I saw this play out with my Aunt Clara, a woman who lit up every room with her stories. In her late 70s, she got hooked on late-night TV. Those glowing screens kept her up past midnight, and she'd laugh it off, saying, "I'll sleep when I'm old." But soon 4 or 5 hours became her norm. Over time, her spark dimmed. She'd forget where she parked her car, repeat herself in conversations, and once even ask me who I was at a family picnic. It wasn't just aging, it was sleep deprivation taking its toll. Watching her fade like that broke my heart, and it taught me a lesson. Sleep isn't optional, it's your brain's lifeline. So what can you do to take it back? Start small, don't try to fix it all at once. Dim the lights an hour before bed. It's like telling your body, "Hey, it's time to wind down." Swap that late night tea or coffee for something soothing, like warm milk or chamomile tea. It's a gentle nudge toward dreamland. And here's a trick I love. Keep a little notebook by your bed. If your mind's buzzing with tomorrow's grocery list or that argument with your neighbor, jot it down. It's like handing your worries to someone else so you can rest. Oh, and ditch the phone. Those blue lights trick your brain into thinking it's noon. Try reading a paperback instead. Something light, like a cozy mystery. These aren't big leaps, they're tiny steps that add up to nights of deep restorative sleep. Your mind and your future self will thank you. Habit number 2, sitting still while life passes by. Let's talk about something you might be doing right this second. Sitting. Maybe you're in your favorite armchair, legs propped up, remote in hand, or perhaps you're at the kitchen table, lingering over a cup of coffee. It feels good, right? After decades of hard work, you've earned that rest. But here's the shocking truth. Sitting too much isn't rest. It's a slow, sneaky threat to your health. Did you know that about 23% of adults over 65 are physically inactive? That's nearly 1 in 4 seniors spending their days glued to a seat, barely moving beyond the fridge or the bathroom. You might be thinking, so what? I'm not hurting anyone. But here's the hard part. A sedentary lifestyle doesn't just stiffen your joints, it puts your whole body at risk. Studies show it can increase your chances of heart disease by 45%, diabetes by 60%, and premature death by 20 to 30%. That's not just a little ache in your back, it's your heart straining, your blood sugar spiking, your life quietly shrinking. I saw this with my neighbor, Mr. Harold, a retired mechanic who loved his recliner more than life itself. At 68, he'd park himself there for hours, watching old westerns, only getting up for a sandwich or a beer. He'd say, "I've earned this peace." But then he started huffing and puffing, just walking to his mailbox. A doctor's visit revealed high blood pressure and early heart trouble, all tied to sitting too long. Harold told me later, "I thought I was relaxing, but I was rusting." It's not just Harold. Our bodies were made to move. Sitting too much is like leaving a car in the garage too long. The engine seizes and the tires flatten. But here's the hope. You don't need to become a gym rat or run a 5K. Just 150 minutes of moderate movement a week, about 20 minutes a day, can cut your risk of early death by 31%. That's a walk around the block, watering your plants, or swaying to a song on the radio. Look at the folks in Sardinia, Italy, one of those blue zones where people live past 100. They don't lift weights or jog. They walk to the store, knead bread, chase goats up hills. It's movement baked into life, not forced into a schedule. So how do you start? Try this tonight. After dinner, skip the couch and take a stroll. Feel the breeze, listen to the birds, wave at a neighbor, or stand up during TV commercials. Stretch your arms, wiggle your toes. If you've got grandkids, play tag for 5 minutes. They'll tire you out in the best way. I started doing this myself after watching Harold struggle. 10 minutes of gardening here, a walk to the corner there. My knees creak less, my mood's brighter, and I sleep better too. It's not about perfection, it's about motion. Your heart, your bones, your whole body will feel the difference. Habit number 3, letting loneliness creep in. Here's a habit that might catch you off guard. Letting loneliness settle into your days like an uninvited guest. Maybe you're fine with your own company. After all, you've got your routines, your books, your TV shows. But did you know that being socially isolated is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day? That's right. Nearly 1 in 4 adults over 65, about 25%, are living without regular connections to friends, family, or neighbors. You might think, I don't need a big social circle. I'm okay alone. But loneliness isn't just a quiet evening. It's a health hazard hiding in plain sight. The numbers don't lie. Social isolation can jack up your risk of early death by 50%, matching the toll of smoking or obesity. It's not just feeling a little blue. Your body suffers too. It hikes your stress hormones, dims your immune system, and even speeds up cognitive decline. I saw this with Mrs. Lynn, an 80-year-old widow I met at a community center. After her husband passed, she pulled back from the world. She'd sit alone in her apartment, knitting scarves no one needed, saying, "Who'd bother with an old lady like me?" Over months, her hands shook more, her words stumbled, and she admitted she felt like a ghost. It wasn't age, it was the silence around her eating her alive. Now flip that coin and meet my Uncle Bao, 92 and full of life. He lives in a tiny village where everyone's a friend. Every morning he shuffles to the coffee shop, sips tea with buddies, plays cards with his nephews, and even teaches the kids to fish. He told me, "People keep my heart beating," and science backs him up. Strong social ties can add years to your life. In blue zones like Icaria, Greece, folks live past 100 because they're woven into their communities, sharing meals, laughing over wine, and leaning on each other. Loneliness doesn't stand a chance there. So what can you do if you're feeling that quiet creep in? Start small. Don't force yourself into a crowd. Call a friend you've lost touch with. Just say, "Hey, I was thinking about you." Join a group that fits you, a book club, a gardening circle, or even a church choir, or just chat with the cashier at the store. Those little hellos stack up. I tried this after seeing Mrs. Lynn struggle. I invited a neighbor over for tea. We talked about nothing special, but it felt like sunlight after a long rain. Connection isn't a chore, it's a lifeline. Reach for it, even if your hand shakes at first. Habit number 4, ignoring what's on your plate. Let's move to something we all love, food. You might think you've got this figured out. After all, you've been eating your whole life, right? But here's a jaw dropper. 1 in 3 older adults in the US is either malnourished or at risk of it. That's not just about forgetting lunch. It's about missing the vitamins, minerals, and fuel your body needs to thrive past 65. Poor nutrition isn't a small slip. It can crank up your risk of chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes by 50%. That's half your health hanging in the balance over what's on your fork. I saw this with my friend Mrs. Rose, 72, and proud of her independence. She lived on canned soup and crackers. Quick, cheap, no fuss. She'd say, "I don't need fancy cooking at my age." But then she started dragging. Her hair thinned, her energy tanked, and her doctor flagged low vitamin B12 and iron. It wasn't laziness. It was a habit of brushing off her body's cries for better fuel. Contrast that with Okinawa, Japan, a blue zone, where folks live past 100 on diets 95% plant-based. Beans, sweet potatoes, greens. They're not just surviving, they're glowing, with sharp minds and sturdy legs. Why does this happen? As we age, our bodies change. Our taste buds are dull, our stomachs shrink, and we might skip meals because cooking feels like a chore. But those processed snacks and skimpy dinners, they're like putting cheap gas in a vintage car. It sputters. Take my slip-up. I used to grab chips instead of chopping veggies. Easy, salty, done. Then I noticed my joints ached more. My skin looked dull. A little swap, spinach in my eggs and apple instead of a cookie, lifted me fast. So how do you fix it? Start where you stand. Toss a handful of greens into your soup. It's like a nutrient hug. Swap soda for water with a lemon slice. Your kidneys will dance. Breakfast matters too. Try oatmeal with berries. It's warm, sweet, and keeps you steady all morning. If you're shaky on ideas, peek at a farmer's market. Those colors aren't just pretty, they're power. Small bites, big wins. Your body's begging for it. Habit number 5, brushing off stress like it's nothing. Finally, let's tackle something trickier. Stress. You might think, I've survived tough times. War, kids, bills. I can handle a little worry. But chronic stress after 65 isn't just a badge of grit. It's a termite gnawing at your health. It jacks up your blood pressure, saps your immune system, and even shrinks the part of your brain that holds memories. Studies say it can shorten your life by years if you let it fester. That's not toughness, it's a trap. I knew a man, Mr. Tran, a retired teacher who hit 70 and couldn't stop worrying. Money, his kids, the world spinning too fast. He'd pace his house muttering, "Something's always wrong." His hair grayed overnight, his hands shook, and he landed in the ER with a heart scare, all stress piling up like bricks. Then there's my Aunt Mai, 85, and calm as a lake. She sits by her garden, breathing deep while she waters roses, saying, "Worrying steals my days. I won't let it." She's onto something. Peace isn't luck, it's a choice. Stress sneaks in easily, bills stack up, the news blares and your knees ache. But brushing it off like dust doesn't work. It sticks. I've been there, fretting over deadlines until my chest tightened. Then I tried something. 5 minutes of quiet, breathing in for 4, out for 6. It's like hitting reset, or step outside. Let the sun warm your face, hear the leaves rustle. It's not magic, it's relief. Your heart, your mind, your whole self deserves that break. Real life stories to inspire you. Let's pause for some stories, because numbers are great, but people stick with you. Meet Mrs. Evelyn, 78, from my old neighborhood. She used to spend her days indoors, sipping wine and watching soap operas. Sleep was a mess. Her legs ached from sitting, and she'd tell me, "I'm too old to change." But one day, her granddaughter dragged her to a community dance class. Evelyn grumbled at first, but soon she was swaying to Frank Sinatra, laughing with new friends. She ditched the wine, started walking daily, and now sleeps like a baby. At 78, she's outliving her own expectations. Then there's Mr. Fong, 88, who lost his wife and nearly lost himself to loneliness. He'd sit by the window, watching the world go by, but a neighbor invited him to a weekly chess game. That one step led to friendships, shared meals, and a sparkle in his eye I hadn't seen in years. He says, "I didn't know how much I needed people until they found me." These aren't miracles, they're choices, small ones stacking up to big results. What's your next step? Lessons to live by. So what have we learned today? First, sleep isn't a luxury, it's your brain's bodyguard. Guard it with a cozy routine. Second, sitting too much is a trap. Break free with a walk or a wiggle. Third, loneliness isn't independence, it's a risk. Reach out, even if it's just a wave. Fourth, food isn't just fuel, it's your foundation. Feed it well. And fifth, stress isn't a badge of honor, it's a burden. Let it go with a breath or a bloom. Here's the golden thread. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. A 10-minute stroll, a phone call, a greener plate. These tiny shifts ripple out to years of health and joy. Think of the blue zones. They don't chase perfection, just balance. You can too. Your turn, join the journey. Now I want to hear from you. What's one habit you'll tweak after watching this? Drop it in the comments, I'll be reading everyone. If this video lit a spark for you, hit that like button. It's your way of saying, keep it coming. And if you're not subscribed yet, join our family. Click subscribe and tap the bell. Together we'll keep uncovering secrets to a fuller, happier life after 65. Let's not just live longer, let's live better. See you in the next one.